Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland is a book based on reminiscences of my childhood. The book is dedicated to my grandmother and mother, who were my best tutors.
For an event of the book review and panel discussion on Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland by Z.G.Muhammad. Although this university is concern of most of us here, but the views and the vision of the people could vary. For Allama Iqbal says, हक बात को लेकिन मैं छुपा कर नहीं रहता, तू है तुझे जो कुछ नजर आता नहीं. Here we are expected to be reminded of some sweet memories of our past, particularly about some interesting cultural, socio-political aspects recorded by Zaid Saab in his book. So to begin the event, may I request our chief guest, Professor M. Safi Saab, senior most faculty of the university, to show his gracious presence on the dais. And I also request Mr. Zahid G.Muhammad, who holds the pivotal position in the event, to join the luminary on the dais. Professor M. Safi Saab. Now I humbly request the reviewer of the book, Professor Muhammad Aslam, who has his own way of viewing things, to come to the dais. Professor Aslam. Our worthy panelist, Professor Noor Ahmad Baba Saab, Dr. Abdul Wahid Saab, Mr. Noor Hassan IFS, are requested to join the notables on the dais. Lastly, I request Mr. Riyaz Rufai Saab, University Librarian, who is always instrumental in holding such events, to join the galaxy of the wise people on the podium. Mr. Riyaz Rufai Saab. May I request now Mr. Riyaz Rufai, University Librarian, to welcome the luminaries and worthy participants of the program. Mr. Riyaz Rufai Saab.
Before we start the proceedings, we inform you that as one of our colleagues, Dr. Farid Parvati, has passed away yesterday, I request all of you to join in the condolence and request all of you to stand up for 2 minutes. And Fatiha. Aslam Sahab, please.
Allahumma anta rabbuhu wa anta khalaqtuhu wa anta hadaytuhu ala deen al-Islam wa anta qabaztahu wa anta ta'lamu bi-sirrihi wa alaniyatahu. Jina shifa'a faghfir lahu warhamhu. Jina shifa'a faghfir lahu warhamhu. جينا شفاء فاغفر له وارحمه وبلغ روحه منا صواب الفاتحة مع الإخلاص. اللهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله احد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم عليهم. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف عنه واكرم نزله ووسع مدخله واغسله بالماء والثلج والبرد. اللهم نقه من الخطايا كما نقيت الثوب الابيض من الدنس وابدله دارا خيرا من داره واهلا خيرا من اهله وزوجا خيرا من زوجه وادخله الجنة وينجو من عذاب القبر وعذاب يوم القيامة واحشره مع المتقين والأبرار. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
M.A. Sophie, senior most faculty member of the University of Kashmir and renowned mathematician and scholar of repute. He is internationally known for his contribution in the mathematics. I am fortunate enough to have him today here on dais, presiding over this function. Professor Muhammad Baba, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences. Professor Muhammad Aslam, Mr. Noor Hassan Rufai, Dr. Wahid, and Mr. G.M. Zahid, the author of the book. I welcome you all here. I welcome also the members of civil society who have come here, the students, and my colleagues who have spared some time to be part of this function. Allama Iqbal Library, since the last 10 years, has expanded its activities and has started to go for the extension of some programs. And as a part of such extension activities, we have started a unique program of book review sessions in which we normally release the books, especially on Jammu and Kashmir, and then have a review of those books followed by a panel discussion. Today's event is in sequence of such functions, and we have requested Mr. G.M. Zahid, a renowned columnist and a bureaucrat, a retired bureaucrat, to release his book, the famous book, Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland, here. And this will be followed by a panel discussion by panelists and a book review by Professor Muhammad Aslam. I welcome you all here, and I hope that such functions will encourage us, and I shall be further encouraged to provide you a platform for such activities which with me. I am thankful to all of you and request Mr. Muttu to go ahead with the proceedings.
Thank you, Rihal Faisa, for welcoming the guests and the panelists and other luminaries on the dais. Now I request the author of the book, Mr. Z.G.Muhammad, to introduce formally the book and speak about the book cracks and context of the book. Mr. G.Muhammad.
Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Professor Sophie Saab, my dear friends, Dr. Aslam, Professor Aslam, Professor Noor Ahmad Baba, Dr. Wahid, and Noor Hassan Saab, and other friends and colleagues and my dear students. Assalamu alaikum. See, I am really delighted with the audience number here and extremely honored and humbled by the galaxy of people that has gathered here. I really feel indebted to Professor Rufai Saab for his endeavors and efforts for making this event possible. I am really thankful to Professor Sophie Saab, Professor Muhammad Aslam, Professor Noor Ahmad Baba, Dr. Wahid, and Noor Hassan Saab for taking time off from their busy schedule and come here for releasing my book. As someone has very rightly said, generally the author's musings consist of what is inside the book and what made him write it. I will follow the tradition, notwithstanding the fact that I believe in departures, but here I would love to follow the tradition and introduce the book. The book Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland, as the very title suggests, is about the city I was born in. Is about the city that has not been a decaying city as we see it today. On seeing my city dying, on seeing Pokribal, Braidanambal, Nigin, Anchar and Dal gasping for breaths, my heart aches. On seeing once garden city of the East losing its architectural tradition and social ethos, I am really pained. Friends, my city is not dying because of natural process. Is not dying because nature has intrigued against it. No, not at all. It's not dying because of God has intrigued against this city. Is dying because of bad planning, wrong prioritization, lack of imagination of political leadership, and bureaucratic apathy. On seeing this wonderful city that waxed even the dullest lyrical choked, I often feel nostalgic. I believe nostalgia is like a goblet of elixir that revitalizes the dead nerves and puts new rhythm in the lethargic hearts. As I move around and I see my city decaying and dying, I really feel pain. And to give some relief to my pain, I just try to look back and see how beautiful this city used to be, how great its traditions were, and how nice its ethos was. It cascades with gems of wisdom, knowledge, and spiritualism. Its lanes and bylanes reverberate with songs of chivalry about the people living in this great historical city of yesteryears. Every brick tells a tale of sages and seers that walked through the streets of this city. Every chiseled limestone looks scarlet, bearing testimony to the sacrifices offered by the people to preserve their honor and dignity during centuries of despotic rule. The massive polished stones that dot many parts of the old city, with images engraved on some of them, sharpen our imagination and recreate a whole of history before us. They tell us stories about big mansions and palaces that dominated the skyline once upon a time. They narrate stories about the chivalrous men and women that might have been part of the great battles that were fought in ancient times in this city. They tell awe-striking tales of the galloping horses and merciless alien soldiers that invaded this land from time to time and raised the dust blanketing the sun from the earth. The shrieks and sobs of the wretched humans with their bones distinctly visible from their fleshless, frail structure that might have been whipped to carry the gigantic slabs during those murky and gloomy days of human history subtly breathe from these stones. These stones relate stories about Buddhist period of our history when scholars of Mahayana philosophy were much sought after and Buddhist monks and scholars from China and Tibet visited this land to learn from Kashmiri scholars about a religion born in Gaya. These slabs remind us of the Hindu period when not polytheism but monotheism as taught by Shivites had its day in Kashmir. The minarets of mosques, hospices, shrines that dominated skylines speak about the saintly heritage that The tapering quadrangular wooden minarets with sparkling crescent on golden spires distinctly testify the arrival of Islam to this slaughterous land and sweeping across it like morning breeze in inspiring everyone to embrace the new faith. The shrines of great saints and tombs of missionaries that have arrived in this city from the friends, much before the birds start chirping, this city comes to life with hymns, naats, munajats and mankabats written by great masters of Persian poetry, Rumi, Hafiz, Saidi and Jami, and by great Kashmiri poets. The city has been an epicenter of Renaissance that changed literary tradition of the Mulk Kashmir. Hundreds of Persian and Kashmiri poets that have embellished the rich literary landscape of Kashmir for centuries were born in this land. Of the thousands old Persian poets that have enriched great Persian literature were born in this part of the city. More particularly what you call as Shahri Khas now. The lanes and by-lanes continue to resonate with melodious songs of these poets. Many great patrons of Kashmiri Sufiana music lived in these lanes. Lilting tones of santoor, other traditional Kashmiri musical instrument emanating from the balconies of rich and Sufis would fill our hearts with cheeriness in our childhood. As I often write, my birth park has been a city of resistance. It has fought battles royal against the marauders that invaded it and tried to disturb its social fabric. It has raised banners of revolt against the oppressors and the ruthless rulers. Much before mutiny of 1857, the shawl weavers of my city rose against the oppressive feudal system and wrote scarlet pages of history. Every street testifies the pitched battles for people against cavalries of autocratic and oppressors. My part of city has been a cauldron of traditions that changed the socio-cultural spectrum of the beautiful country in the lap of Harmukh and Zabarman. Now the question arises how this book was born. In fact, I have written these columns, but basic credit goes to Mr. Fayaz Ahmad Kulu, who is editor-in-chief of Greater Kashmir. He one day told me in his office that people say, what you call this, what is now nicknamed as downtown. They say, you call this place, these dirty lanes and filthy streets, Shahri Khas. Somebody had told him in his office. He said that if I could write a piece or two on this old part Srinagar, which we call as Shahri Khas. In fact, the word Shahri Khas was born with my column more prominently, which was carried in Usma. And I told him that I'll write maybe a column or two at best. And the paper started city page with Hilal Ahmad as its editor, who was also from Nawab Bazar. And I wrote first piece for the city page, and I told him that I'll be doing a weekly column, maybe 4, 5, 6 at best. And I had never imagined that I'll be tiring my friend in this column regularly. It has perhaps it's gained its popularity, that has been my feedback, and how the book came into existence. Every friend, whether living abroad, I first got an email from one of our teachers here in mass communication, who is now settled in Canada, Raisa Pandit. She sent me that this will be a wastage if you don't compile it in the shape of a book. In fact, we carried her letter, which was very beautifully written, in the newspaper. And then my friends, Dr. Wahid, Dr. Abdullah, and everyone around told me that I should compile this book and put it, preserve it, Perhaps it may not be as relevant today because many who have witnessed this whole show of the old city are still living and they may not be relishing it that much. But after 20 years, it will go as a part of our social, cultural and almost political history of the city of Srinagar. That's how this book was born. If you permit me, I will read one or two, leave it to the reviewer to blast it or to whatever he wants to do with it. I was, in fact, in the morning searching, I would read some paragraphs, and perhaps because every father loves his child, I thought my piece is worth reading. I don't know. This is one of the pieces of Barefoot Days that speaks about the devotion that I had as a child for the Hazrat Bal Shrine and other shrines in the city of Srinagar. I traveled barefoot. Many times in blazing sun, I treaded shoeless miles blistering my feet. In rains, I walked through slushy roads with rough glass splinters making my feet bleed profusely. It was not fate of my forefathers reborn in me. It was not reincarnation of the Buddhist instincts of not harming the creatures under your sandals that made me walk barefoot. It was not the influence of the lesson that twin sisters Bahadur and Dahadur had taught patron saint of Kashmir, Sheikh Nuruddin, that he was killing thousands under his heavy mace while stepping on the green grass. It was not the lesson that I learned from turbaned old Kashmiri Pandits who walked barefoot chanting hymns in praise of Shiva while passing through our street. True, it was their hymns that many times woke me up and much before it was dawn. Then I was yet to learn that in the morning grow curly under feet and stepping on cool grass with sparkling dewdrops on blades of grass soothe eyes and heals sores. It was not boyhood, painless play that made me walk barefoot. It was not the butterfly's chase that made me run barefoot. It was not fright of the cunning black wasp that made me jostle barefoot through the crowds. It was not the crazy fowl escaped from the coop, making flights after flights from house to house that made me walk barefoot. It was not the whistle of the gardener in the neighboring pomegranate garden that made me run away barefoot after having plucked some unripe and ripe fruit. It was devotion that made us to keep schools closed after first half day. The orchard keepers were not on watch. Were on watch the buxom fruit that tempted us as apple might have to progenitor of human race. Mostly the orchard keeper on this day were away. They would either be away to their homes or for their prayers. I and my peers would pluck as many pomegranates as we would and put inside our shirts, tucked in the trousers. A dozen pocket trousers that are in fashion in teeny boppers these days were then unheard of. If these trousers would have been there, then stealing pomegranates would have been easier for us. Many times we tied the trousers at the ankle and converted them into sacks and put stolen pomegranates on both sides of our legs. It was difficult to run with trousers stacked with heavy fruit, but we had mastered the art and could steal our way like a morning breeze from the orchard to safe havens in our mala for eating some pomegranates coolly and distributing some amongst our friends. It was not for stealing pomegranates that I walked barefoot. Not that we could not afford a pair of shoes. We were not proverbial barefoot boys that could have inspired progressive poetasters in our locality to wax lyrical. It was fate that made me and my friends join my others to walk barefoot walkers. Morning those days I had celestial peace and carried an ambience of superiority. In the month of Rabiul Awwal, my birthmark would wake up to the light much before the first ray of sun would cross the Zabarman Hilot. The peaks of which were distinctly visible from my home. Hundreds of devotees singing hymns in praise of Prophet Muhammad would walk barefoot on the streets outside. Men, women and children would walk through the streets outside our home on way to Hazrat Bal shrine to say Fajr prayers. I do not know how the tradition of walking barefoot at the shrines was born, if it had an Islamic sanction or not, but the tradition was very strong in my childhood. It was something connected with the faith and devotion. It was devotion that made many octogenarians and septuagenarians, men and women, to travel miles to Hazrat Bal shrine on all Fridays and during the first 12 days of the gracious month of Rabiul Awwal. My grandmother's friend Khatija and never boarded a bus or took a boat to the shrine till her death. Many took a boat on the ghat at Fajarbal, the ghat that is believed to have been part of the estate purchased by Khaja Naqshband Sahib, buried at Khaja Bazar. In my childhood, it cost 2 annas, 1/8 of a rupee to reach to Hazrat Bal, both by bus and boat, and out of devotion, majority would walk. The Hazrat Bal shrine was 3 miles from our home. Me and my friends also, out of faith and devotion, walked to the shrine barefoot during the blessed month. Many times examinations and results were the driving force for taking barefoot journey, not only to Hazrat Bal shrine but to other mosques. With these words, I thank you very much. I would love to read more, but it would be boring for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Z.G.Muhammad, for presenting excerpts from his book, Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland. Now this is the time to release the interesting book, Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland, for which I request the chief guest, Professor M. Safi, to formally release the book, Ms. Mimtiaz. And here I would like to request Sheikh Ejaz, who is the publisher of the book, to share the honor for being the publisher. He is become audience. Mr. Sheikh Ejaz. Thank you, Professor M. Sofisa, for formally releasing this book. An important part of the event is to present the review of the book, for which I request Professor Muhammad Aslam to present it to the forum.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Professor Muhammad Amin Sofi, friends on the podium, dear audience in the hall, it's with a heavy heart that I am presenting this review today, because I lost a student of mine, Professor Farid Parvati, who was a very dear student of mine when I was in Islamic college, and I have seen him grow
as a very good critic, a very good poet, and a colleague in the university. It's really sad for me and for the entire community to have lost a friend who is all over India known for his poetry and criticism, writing criticism. Anyway, I assure Zahid that I'm not going to blast him or have any bombardment at all. But since my friend Mr. Riaz Rufai told me to review the book, which I have been reviewing so many books, a regular columnist, almost a regular columnist, I have become a regular book reviewer. Of course, since people have expectations from me as a teacher, they want me to have a look at their books and present them to the people so that we are able to develop some reading habits. So those of you who are familiar with nostalgia column, what actually this book has done is that it has turned it from the book of an hour to book of all times, as Bacon would call it, giving it a permanent place in the archives of the library or in the annals of Kashmir history. When I looked at the book, though I had read almost all the columns of Zahid, I was wondering how to look at it, in what genre it should be put. I have been reviewing poetry, drama, prose writings, and this is a book which, at least for me in the beginning, was creating a problem. What genre of literature should it be called? But then I fortunately surfed the net and was able to find a note on Victorian literature, an article on Victorian literature, which is known for nostalgia. And I would like to begin my review by reading two paragraphs which are interesting and which should tell us why Zahid's book merits our attention and our reading, not only for the city of Srinagar, but for Kashmir as well. So I am quoting, nostalgia and consequently nostalgic literature are frequently critiqued as affected, sentimental, and a way to falsify the past through strategies of forgetting rather than recollecting. Misused as a term of abuse, the word nostalgia is in fact often taken up to describe something it is not. As cultural critics put it, nostalgia is a topic of embarrassment and a term of abuse. Diatribe upon diatribe denounced it as reactionary, repressive, ridiculous. The most persistent allegation perhaps is that nostalgia is both pathetic and pathological, a rather vague criticism that inadvertently pinpoints nostalgia's etymological origins, even while it further confuses its current meanings. According to the Old Oxford Dictionary, nostalgia has essentially two sets of meaning. Firstly, having retained its original pathological connotation, it is a form of melancholia caused by prolonged absence from one's home or country, severe homesickness. Secondly, in its transferred usage, it is defined as regret or sorrowful longing for the conditions of a past age, regretful or wistful memory or recall of an earlier time. The history of nostalgia, specifically its inception as a clinical term in the 17th century, is inseparable from its subsequent accumulation of meanings, revealing also the origins of the most common misunderstandings about nostalgia. The word nostalgia was coined in a medical treatise in 1688.
And the universalization of education, giving education to all. You can make linkages of this sort, which Zahid is talking about the differences that at that time point made. One of my scholars is working on a project on missionaries, contribution of missionaries, and I had pointedly told him that there has been a concept, one concept in Kashmir history is Jabri schools. Please go to the people who have been a part of that education system and ask them why they were called Jabri schools. Thanks now that I can tell him to read these two articles in this book, which actually is. Along with, interestingly, many political workers like Tob Sazes, who have actually been very good activists in politics. You have a lot of characters mentioned who Zahid either...
I look at these pieces where he is talking about his friends who have been a part and parcel. I think he has paid a very rich tribute to them. I don't, in spite of the fact that maybe he doesn't find them closer by now because city has spread a lot and that he is not doing it that way. So what actually is important about this book in general is that you will find food for thought on religion, on society in general, on past history, on people's relationships, neighborhood relationships with each other. And interestingly, he has border crossroads. He has not confined himself to just Kashmir, but he has in one or two pieces talked about Azad Kashmir, especially when the theoretical radio is lost. So Azad Kashmir is not there, theoretical recitation is not there. But he has talked about Lahore also, when people had a lot of misgivings or a lot of myth about Pakistan, about Lahore, what the things would be there, and then people who returned from there, they would tell a different story. So reading this book, piece by piece, reveals a multifaceted city which has undergone a sea change. But what intrigues me most? Is this the Dreamland? Now, or was it the Dreamland then, when Zahid is talking about Srinagar city? A scenario where everything cannot be accepted without a pinch of salt. On that count, it becomes now the responsibility of social scientists to build up social, historical, and community treatises on Kashmir, which
has been avoided from the book. In the following editions of the book, Mr. Zahid Saab will wield his pen to include them. Now, more important segment of this program is panel discussion, for which I request worthy panelists to interact while focusing on the crux and kernel of this interesting book written by Z.G.Muhammad. Further, participants are also requested to share their views at the appropriate time. This is the time to hand over mic to Professor Noor Ahmad Baba to hold the reins of the event. Professor Noor Ahmad Baba.
Honorable Chairperson, Sofi Saab, other colleagues on the dais, dear participants. I think I'm happy that I have been, in fact, I'm thankful to the organizers to have invited me on this function, because I share most of the nostalgia that Zahid Saab has put on record in the book, because I belong to old city, slightly a different side of it, but very close. I lived in Nawakadal area, but I was all connected with Nyauhata, Islamia School, Khaja Bazar, Jamia Masjid. Much of it, maybe I have followed you by some years, but much of the nostalgia that you mentioned, I have been part of that. I also, in a way, think it was my privilege to be born at a place where I was born. There be no better place in the world to be born there. Where I was born in Mohalla called Manpura. It was very close to Eidgah. The variety of life that I have seen, possibly very few people in the world would have seen it. Every day in the morning, during day, evening, night, we would move out, play. And it was a very rich in terms of rich area, in terms of biodiversity. We had all water bodies around. We would swim, we would fish, we would do boating. Wherever it was an abandoned boat, we would jump into that, do a little bit of boating, ride on horses, sometimes donkeys also in the Eidgah. This is a nostalgia that I cannot forget. And there's a lot of it, and I'm coming to it, how much we enjoyed, and terribly sorry that much of the glory that my area had is lost. I will come to it slightly later. Many things, Badamwari, going every time we had some money, we would, during that spring season, early spring season, we would go to Badamwari for buying the gur and just eating them there as friends together. So this is, that way I think the book is very important. It is, I would say this book is in itself. And it is a source material for future historians who would be writing any history of Srinagar city, socio-political history or socio-cultural history of Srinagar city. I will find this book very useful. Because a lot of information, first-hand information is useful information, first-hand, subjective, because he has been parcel of the dynamic living of the place. So this book, I would say, it has tremendous value. Yes, it is a nostalgia. It may not have remained a dreamland for us, unfortunately. I would say, yes, all places in the world have changed, and change is always somewhat towards good. But unfortunate part of the Srinagar city is it's not changed in the planned, in a normal process of changes. It's just short change of the Srinagar city has been distorted. It has been it's not changed towards better. Much of it has been going towards unplanned. There's been a lot of things that I've just referred to, because I would say that all the water bodies around my area, Eidgah, have been lost. The greenery that was there is lost. Eidgah is today, unfortunately, because in a very depilated condition, because we got into trying to plan it, and instead of planning it, the place where you had almost half of the city coming together, playing football, playing cricket, having a lot of social life, is lost. You don't have no Eidgah left practically. It's basically split into, there's mud, there's unplanned, some bit of development, they put a lot of clay into this, and it's not been properly organized. So it is lost. Places around, it was surrounded by water bodies, these water bodies are lost. It was, at the backyard of it, towards Sadapura, it was a lot of water bodies, they have been lost. This Naraimar, there was not a Naraimar on the road is there, extension of which went towards north, where we lived. We used to bathe, we used to fish, there was a lot of boating, and a lot of things would be supplied to the city through that area. That's not there. It's become a dirty drain everywhere. I don't know whether that was option, because when this road was constructed, even there it was at that time, by that time reduced to a very dirty drain, and people were wanting it to be changed to something, either to dig it back and revive the old plant, or some people would have preferred it to be road. But now it is for planners to see whether that was bad or good. We have seen cities have changed all over the world. I've been to many old cities of the world. I was in Sweden some years back, in Uppsala, which is several hundred years, almost 1,000 years old city, where past has been revived with change. You have houses which are as old as 500, 600 years old houses. This I saw in Amsterdam also, where old houses in the Dutch city have been maintained, colonial houses, colonial structures are still maintained. But in our place, I don't know what kind of, it is not planning, it is just a decline.
Because I am myself living in the nearby area. Now I request our chief guest, Professor Muhammad Amin Safi Saab, to present his views about the book. Professor Muhammad Amin Safi Saab.
I would like to begin by making two excuses. I have a sore throat, so I may not be clearly audible to the audience. And secondly, I had sought this indulgence from Riyaz Sahab that I have to catch up with a class that I have fixed at 2, so I would like to take the slot which was otherwise supposed to be taken by Dr. Wahid Sahab. So anyway, it's indeed a privilege to be part of this occasion marking the book release ceremony of Mrs. Zahid's book, Srinagar, My City, My Dreamland. I'm not here to give a critical assessment of the contents of this book, which is best left to the panelists during the panel discussion that has already started and that's going to continue after this presentation. I would merely like to settle for a few comments that have been shaped by my reading of his weekly column Nostalgia in the Greater Kashmir, in the newspaper Greater Kashmir, which I have been going through more or less on a regular basis, though I do miss out on some important and interesting write-ups that keep appearing in this newspaper every now and then. Well, I'm not a historian per se, nor even a student of Kashmir history. I profess mathematics, which is hardly any area of overlap with the theme of discussion this forenoon. So my views are in the capacity of a casual reader of Zahid Saab's column. As I said, I have been reading it with a lot of interest ever since it began to appear in the Greater Kashmir. This column on nostalgia by Zahid Saab shares my passion for music in the sense that both these things bring back memories of the glorious past. So whenever I read his column, a whole picture unfolds before my eyes of the good old days, and so is the case when I listen into music, both Kashmiri folk and of course Bollywood music. Let me state the obvious fact that the hallmark of a good book is the originality of its contents, coupled with the intensity and passion with which the author has strived to carry his conviction. It's my considered view that the book under reference meets both these criteria, the occasional typos notwithstanding. What distinguishes this book by Zahid Saab from so many other books on this genre of topics is that its contents come right from the author's heart and are unsullied by the possibility of duplication, replication, and plagiarism that are the order of the day in the contemporary world of publication. Stories and events having unfolded during his childhood and youth that were spent old days of yore in the lanes and bylanes of Srinagar has simply been brilliant. What's indeed remarkable about the author is the articulation of his reminiscences of the glorious past of Srinagar on the basis of a memory which is simply awesome. Some time back, when I ran into him during some event here in the university, I told him, is it indeed the case that you have been writing these columns purely on the strength of a memory? He said yes, and I was really deeply surprised by the awesome memory that he has. Even a casual reading of his nostalgia column takes you down the memory lane and conjures up the image of his tea that was so inviting, so exciting, and so full of life. Where have that unique culture and that ambience of Srinagar gone? Comparing the Srinagar of that area, of that era, with what it has morphed into right now, all one can say is that Srinagar has lost its culture, its pedigree, and its innocence. This is surely on account of a number of factors which include, but are not limited to these following few factors. One, the assault of all-pervasive materialism, political uncertainty, especially so out of the past 2 decades of political turmoil, absent globalization, which has been the buzzword since the early 90s. The term globalization has become somewhat like a cliche to explain everything that's new and manifesting in this age of rapid communication and technological progress. While it's acknowledged that culture is probably one of the most complicated objects of study, it's probably due to the dynamics of culture which precludes the possibility of it being static. The notion of culture has gone a long way from the traditional definition to its contemporary one, involving a capacity to embrace new and emerging trends, new ideas, and new ways of how people behave in the light of progress and modernism. The main ingredients of culture are language, history, religion, customs, artifacts, cooking, values, traditions, ways of dress, food, art, and lifestyle. But what happens to this concept when all art, music, and literature is globally dispersed, user-generated, open source, multi-platform, and available on demand? While some societies have shut themselves up and tried to protect themselves from external influences to preserve their culture, others are more open by allowing the dynamics of interaction to play or by reaching out, and mutual coexistence based on love and respect for each other in conformity with the Kashmiri ethos. I once again congratulate Zahid Saab for this splendid effort in sharing with us his experiments with truth. I thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Mahmood Sofi Saab, for presenting his views about the book, particularly decaying culture of the Kashmir. May I request now Mr. Nur Hassan Rufai Saab, IFS, to present his views about the book. Mr. Rufai Saab.
नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम। अस्सलामु अलैकुम। Srinagar to Zahid, Shahri Khas to Mr. Kullu, and Kashmir to Mughals, Chushahar Yatmus Bazas. The name of the city of the country is the same as that of the country itself, Chulekha Bernier. Mughal chhina आमुच Srinagar के तिमसियां कशीरी और यम साथ अकबर took us over mostly च बसान नावन मज 38,000 नाव आस बकर अर्ज कि कहा गोछ रिसर्च करुन कि टोपोग्राफी ऑफ श्रीनगर कचा चेंज गमत right from the days Mughals have come. Mughalo petu gunuktan. Kya wajh chu? Asi chu qabristan yetat UN observers group chu tatat pahadas pet zaminas pet chun. Yicha yikis yetat zamin chu tatat os aab. As kya yichinu uchan Jahangiras when he says that river Jahlam drains into Dal and leaves at a certain other place. Yisha haqiqat mar banav Barsha Saban Nalai mar thonas now because it had the shape of a snake. Yemi sat ba me kunushat doito juk impression chu shahri Srinagar. Yemsad ba paran chu Srinagar was 22nd biggest city both in extent and population in whole of British Empire. At kya gao? Wunkes kya cheez set apart? What has happened?
For our younger generation, and we are thankful to you for highlighting certain problems which are facing here in Kashmir, particularly in Srinagar, like dogs, etc. Now I request this columnist, Dr. Abdul Wahid Saab, who has already given vent to his feelings about this book through his article in Greater Kashmir. I have myself read that. I request Dr. Wahid Saab to present his views about the book. Dr. Wahid Saab.
Professor Sofi Saab, Zahid Saab, Riaz Rufai Saab, Professor Aslam Saab, Noor Hassan Saab, Dr. Jayed Iqbal, Mr. Ashraf Saab, Mahmoud Amin Kaji Saab, I cannot name, Dr. Altaf Mufti is sitting there, dear audience. हजारों में किस्से हैं क्या क्या सुनाओ कहाँ तक सुनोगे क्या मिश याद Mr. Zaidun us लिखमुत आत किताब मज ऐसे गसान गाड़ रटने अत बूर कल हेवान तम हुक मल अस ताकत गो बंडस पे मशहूर दुकान तमिस शायद नाव मुनवर अहमद शायद probably his name was Munawar Ahmad. I telephoned him मे दोपस probably छुन यह पजर सह मुनवर शाह तस वन मुनवर गाड़ अमी मूजूब तो what I want to tell you is that I am amazed to see his memory. He probably invited me as a panelist because both of us are born in Navata. And as already mentioned, Navata has been the fountainhead of all political activities It has remained vibrant all through. This area has kept busy the paramilitary forces in ding-dong battles throughout. Zahid and myself, we saw the towering leader of Kashmir, Sheikh Abdullah, for the first time when we were primary school students. Sheikh Saab was released. He came to our mohalla. We had an activist police front worker, Mr. Ghulam Hassan's house, and we followed Sheikh Saab through lanes and by lanes. He delivered in that mohalla in his house, Srinagar's house. Then came the agitation of Holy Relic. That was probably our tryst with politics. Jamia Masjid was the center activity during that period, and Maulana Farooq, he rose to the horizon of political horizon of Kashmir with Maulana Masudi as the producer director of the whole show. Zahid once met me on the Navhatta Chowk and told me that he is going to listen to this Maulana Farooq's speech in Jamia Masjid. I told him that let us go to Bigger Maulvi, Maulana Masudi. Then we saw whatever he has written. But this book tells us about 2 generations ahead. Rather, this is a history which is 1,000 years old. It is a novel way of writing history, and he has done a wonderful job. We should thank Gulshan Book depots also that they are contributing a lot towards literary growth of Kashmir. So many books. During the last 20 years, we have seen a spurt of books. So many books were written on Kashmir, and most of those books, they are related to the turmoil which we have seen during the last 2 decades. We read about incessant curfews, crackdowns, arrests, human rights violations, and mass migration by Kashmiri Pandits, and the fallout of that migration. Even non-Kashmiri writers have written so many books. They have one similar theme, the tragedy of these 20-year turmoil. But what Zahid has written, his book has touched so many topics. He talks of our superstitions, he talks of our religious beliefs, cultural practice, and that way this book is really a unique compendium of so many thoughts which I think is not interesting for a person of my generation only. The younger generation, those who read in universities and schools and colleges, can get a message. He has written about the death of Dal Lake and stagnation of other water bodies. We can get a message. We have to introspect what has happened to this beautiful city. Navhatta has been a very vibrant area, and we are proud that we have been born in Navhatta. Khurshid Wani baithe hain, Dr. Altaf Saab baithe hain, Zahid Saab, Miss Makhzumi was here. I remember that Peer Afzal Makhzumi was a great narrator. Zarif Saab baithe hain, he also belongs to my area. I would listen to Peer Afzal Makhzumi. He would come to our neighborhood. वहाँ एक पुलिस फ्रंट के एक बहुत ही बड़े वर्कर थे, डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्रेसिडेंट गुलाम हसन ज़रगर, and he was a great storyteller. I went to just 5-6 days back. I went to my teacher. He was teaching English in SP College. We had 3 great teachers in the college who had a very beautiful rapport with students. Professor Ghulam Muhammad Khan, he told me about Nurul Hasan.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Wahid Saab, for his views about the book, particularly his love about the Kashmiri language. Now this forum is open. I mean, all the participants are they can pose questions to the panelists, to the book author of the book, or reviewer of the book, this forum may go into the discussion. Yes. Anything? Anybody from these participants may pose some question or any observation about the book? Any inquiry from the author, panelists? Thank you.
मेहमानानी गिरामी कादर खवातीन हजरात दोस्तानी किराम युस आसिफ में बासान अत पे मर्सी करें यह रो यह जरवान यह तन अच वटित बुजुर्गन हुंद यह छुस लुहरान थकुन लायक पन कह छुमन जोरान वन मकल अत सन वन क्या बुमन पन्न मा पच तिम पूरान मते बुमन तो जंगल कत रचो यह अल्लाह तालाहन अख सनशेड थोमुत चश्म मते बुमन यूत ओछ वेठ मौलहन बनोमुत तिथु थवान सनशेडन पे वन पे कड़ थर बुमसिन लागान बुमन तो नतीजे अचन बने पोतज ना गरत तो ना हरत कशरस कशुर करन पर्न मंदच वुचम गछान छस दह तोगुस पानस फरन चटित दितन बेयस नस यह कौम तिमो चीजों सत पछान यम तस बुनियाद सिर्फ नारबाजी सवरी सियासत जद गड़ तमत सियासत जद चंद तमत सियासत जद नजर गम नतीजे वदन बगैर कहन चीज बासान तम यार बल समन बल वन बेंजन पे तम बेहान तम तोत कह चीज कशुर जानान ती रचरान जुर्नोव पन कह बून वोमुत असलाफल मे कोर शुगल मे ताम वोत यह शहजार यम सात सानो विरवार रचमुत तिमन विरवारन तल बेहान गाड़ रटान निन मर्ज बूल बोलान जानवरन हुंद बोल बोश बोजान आज वदन क्रको बगैर कहें कन गसान तिम यल कोत गई ओत्र मर्सी करान कड़ दरवाजस तल महलाम मथावान तथ अकबर शाही तथ कलायस गोडनुक बंकर गुलामी हुंद सह रथरावन यह गोडनुक बंकर मोगलों यम सात दोगल सान आजादी कर तथ कलायस वन महलाम मथान मगर यम सास बद जानवर तम सतन बेगर गई अत मज तम पना गजीन चार हार रोजान यमन गरन मज जाय थोमस मकान सीमट सवान चरन तथ मज सुबह तम करान चिरिव चिरिव तिम सेरन मज अलहन पन बनावान सारी वो कुल्फी बनान गरन मज बिहित सारे प्राकर तथ बहान शस्त्र कीज सीमट महलाम बेकिन तसान यलगार खोरन तलगार खोरन तछुन वोथान नतीजे पन तमीर कशुर सह कित रावरो कम पम अनी कतान लर नतीजे यह गई सारी अथ नतीजे वो बाबी कत लाबी मज कोठन प्राकर टट सब कत ना क्या तस वन ग्रैंड डैड सह कत बब यस वन गल भरत बब वन सतन ग्रैंड पार्ट आज क्या था बसान हटिस आव कशम नतीजे यह कत तीरन फोख खोल थोमुत बिस्तरस वलित कूंजस मज ताप सतन यह कुमलान तूर सकरान नतीजे तम कोत गई अम जन तम रवायत पन्ने गाश फोलान अस कॉकर बांग दिवान यह प्रथ गरस कॉकर मरिहन ब्रांदस तरह ठूलहन दिवान यह कॉकर क्रक नाक करान वलिव सर मे मसाल बनोमुत तुंद खतर आज मे लिखमुत अकिस टुकस मज बस मर्सी खान पन्ने कौमो मे यह तमन टुकन मज पन सोरे यह जन बह समझान या महसूस करान वुफान अंग्रेज कौशुर वुन वखली नकल कर बनो कौशुर त नकली फकत गुजरान दसलस छान सं जी कौकर जेनान 400 पोस सकली यस कौकर 2 रुपयन हुंद ठूल दिए वनकस तम कौकर मर ब्रांदन तल अम पे कौकर तुलान अन गट मज बांग सत कौकर बांग हसा गई तो वोथान बुजुर्ग वोथान लिहाजा तथ गो अन गो तुम सारसी ये गो तथ गाशस नतीज अम पतन प्रथ महलस मज मसाल वोल ओलो 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 सोस प्रथ कह मसाल हेवान इन शुरन दिवान बे तम पतन कारीगर बाय खास वारियन यस वनान दवा दवा पेवान कारीगर बाय तसान महलस इलाकस मज फलान दियाद फलान दियाद फलान दियाद तो यम मजिम यारी महदूब मस बेस फिरार या बट कच राठ तस वनान यह मवल चाल आदम तस नशरस माशरस मज खानदर बनान कहें नेथर तस दिवान नतीज तुम वनान आज जाहिद सबन लिख यह पे अंग्रेज तफसूस बजर कर कहें बनावन गज बुनियाद रचरावन गज बुनियाद इन मनहव सिर्फ प्राटान तम प्राटनस पोस निवान बनावान यह जन पगह परेशानी हुंद बायस बनान रटो यह सिविल सोसाइटी कस वनान हावान वो सा क्या क्या रोमुत लबान मा कह लबित मा कह वन नतीजे सोरे लुहरावान यह अम किन जरूरत सिविल सोसाइटी वनान अहन तुम लेखन वल मे ब्रोट कन दोस दोम लेखान अद नजर दित यमिस यमिस अत सत वाबस्ता सू पारान तो त्रोव योकुन आव तो गो जाहिद साहबन कर सोमरन यह बने किताब कह वो तो पाई मगर बहुत वनान यह बुजुर्गो अगर शुहुर रोच मे ताम वोत बुजुर्गन ही तम अनपढ़ 95% डाल आन हो नाले मर ये बदनस मज खून रग इथे कन आब सनिस अत शहरी खास वनो या वैली वनो वन तथ मज आब नथान प्रथ तरफ प्रथ कह चीज गाठस तल वातान नतीजे बे शुहुर माहौल ये सब्जार प्रथ तरफ
what he expressed over here. So this is the time for a vote of thanks. Events become possible with the cooperation and coordination of others. On behalf of Allama Iqbal Library, I express gratitude to all who cooperated with us in holding this event. First of all, we are beholden to Professor M.S. Sofi Saab for having spared his precious time to be here, our chief guest. Certainly we are indebted to Z.G.Muhammad Saab for his interest to hold this event here in Allama Iqbal Library. Certainly our reviewer, Professor Muhammad Aslam, who always is quite interesting in to participate almost in all the events which are organized by Allama Iqbal Library. We are thankful to panelists, Professor Noor Ahmed Baba Saab, Dr. Abdul Wahid Saab, Noor Hassan Rufai Saab for their active role as a panelist. We are thankful to GK Foundation, without whose cooperation it would not have been possible to make this event successful. Thanks goes to Gulshan Books, publisher of the book, who contributed in many ways for this event. Certainly we are indebted to AMMRC, who are always cooperative to make such events perennial by recording the proceedings. Besides, we are thankful to media, both print and electronic, and all others who have covered these proceedings here. Lastly, may I request all the dignitaries and the participants to enjoy a cup of tea just to kill the chill we are experiencing during the days of December. Thank you very much.